What up, perps? Kid Copious, back in effect. Purple State Party, you know what we're doing here? Repping America, the center, and common sense. And always remember, I love you. You know, we've got a lot to talk about this week. Obviously, the elections are coming up. Quite frankly, I'm sick of hearing about all the political ads. Do you know what? If you just keep on pushing through whatever obstacles and travails life gives you, well, this one's for you. Fetty Cannon, as some of you might know right now, the LA Dodgers are facing the New York Yankees in the World Series. That really takes me back to the 70s when I was really into baseball. Ron Say for life. Steve Garvey was there too. I'm going to vote for him. That's going to be surreal. I was never a fan of his. But one of the people who I was a big fan of was Fernando Valenzuela, and he passed away this week at the age of 63. He made quite the impact. He changed the fact that MLB scouts weren't really going down to Mexico. And after they found Fernando, that changed. He also brought back the Latino community to the Dodgers. And that still remains current today. And, the Dodgers are one of those binding factors that you find in life, where no matter who you are, whatever walk of life you come from, you have a shared love for the Dodgers. I haven't watched the game in well over 10 years, and, I still support the Dodgers. I'm glad they won Game 1, and, it's a shame that Fernando couldn't have made it long enough to see, hopefully, the Dodgers beat the Yankees. So, in other news this week, Israel began retaliatory strikes against Iran following those missile barrages. Quite frankly, Israel was being restrained, I think, a little bit by the UN and the U.S. I think wrongly so. I'm getting really sick of seeing celebrities, comedians, people like that who I admire taking the side of Palestine. I understand that, what's happening over there in Gaza and probably now in Lebanon, it's not good. I don't want to see kids die and everything. But this isn't Israel's fault. The Israeli ambassador, Danny Danon, told Fox News Digital, the regime is vulnerable and it's up to us to decide which message we want to send to them. It will be very painful for the Iranian regime, and they will think twice in the future whether to attack Israel or not. They probably went after a lot of command and control, probably went after some airstrips. I know that the people on the left side of the aisle hope that maybe we could start de-escalating. But the truth of the matter is, the hard answer to all this is that if Iran was removed from the world stage, that might de-escalate the whole planet. Because whether or not you're hearing it on the news, things are escalating. North Korea has sent troops to Ukraine to fight on the Russian side. They are being outfitted with Russian arms and Russian uniforms. And so now you have Russia and North Korea, supplied by China, attacking the Ukraine. You have Israel and Iran really ratcheting up the war there. And, of course, Iran is receiving a lot of support from North Korea, Russia, China. One of the ways they get around some of the embargoes that we put into place is that this axis of doom that they have over there, China, Iran, North Korea, Russia, they support each other to keep themselves going. So a lot of terror groups are receiving funding from these four assholes. And I think it's time that we take at least one of them off the world stage. I don't particularly like war. I've studied war most of my life. Conflicts ranging from, the old days of spears and clubs all the way up to the modern warfare, where we have jets and guided missiles and drones and things like that. And it's always sad because civilians are going to die. I mean, that's just the reality of war. But, like they say, you can't make an omelet without breaking some eggs. And it's time that, at least one of those evil eggs gets broken. So this was just a real quick one. I know that I'm not out here convincing people to vote one way or the other. I'm just trying to bring clarity and common sense, like I say, to the table. I recently learned that a friend of mine who used to watch the show doesn't watch the show anymore because I talk some shit on Trump. Well, fine, okay. Trump is my choice, but that's only because other people aren't running. But I'm also standing up against the Democrats who have given up their party ideals to side with the far left, the lefties. And one of those is Tim Walz. And this came out. Bad record. Democrat VP nominee Walz's Minnesota ranked last for fiscal policy out of 50 states. Things are getting more expensive. The problems are mounting. Homelessness, drug addiction, immigration, crime, fuel prices, inflation. And when we look around and we see our government taking our hard-earned tax dollars and wasting them on shit, I mean, that is the truth of the matter, okay? These are our hard-earned wages that go into their coffers, and they fucking flitter it away. And we're going to see some examples of that, but I wanted to kick it off. I don't like Tim Walz. I think he's a full-on communist. I don't say that hyperbolically. No, that's something completely different. I don't say that to rile people up. I say that because that's who he is. He's shown himself to be that one. We can make jokes about him being Tampon Tim and putting tampon dispensers in boys' bathrooms. I don't care. It's not the dispensers that are the problem. It's the ideology behind it. It's the fact that you're so siding with the radical left. That's really what it is. And whatever. Let's try to move on. Speaking of voting for somebody other than Trump, Tulsi Gabbard was one of my faves. You know, her, Joe Manchin, Kristen Sinema. Some of these people who are pushing back, or as in the case of Tulsi Gabbard, joining the Republicans. Because, right here. You know, this is true. Tulsi Gabbard finally realizes she's far too attractive to be a Democrat. I like that myth. She is a very beautiful lady. Beautiful inside, beautiful outside. She would be a hell of a first female president. A moderate. So moderate that she had to lead the Democrats. See, it's not just me saying that the Democrats have sold out to the far left. Gabbard said the GOP and Trump were a party of common sense and a party that is led by a president who has the courage and the strength to fight for peace. That's true. They then embraced to a screaming audience. There is some common sense. Go back to Tampon Tim. Yes, if there are trans kids at your school, you need to make some accommodations for them. I have no problem with that. I have no problem using people's preferred pronouns, their new name, whatever you want. I have no problem with that. But when it crosses the line from common sense to foolish, that's when I have a problem. We're going to see some more examples of that later on. And I do think that Trump has the courage and strength to fight for peace. It's not easy to fight for peace. But if you look at the abject failure that is the United Nations, you could see why sometimes, for the good of mankind, we must take up arms and we must confront evil head on. And that's what this last administration, Biden-Harris, has lacked any cojones to do. Sure, they send all of our money over to Ukraine. But what are we doing to enforce some of these embargoes? What are we doing to enforce some of these bans? We've raided some bank accounts. We've seized some yachts. But what have we done? Have we stood up and said, enough is enough? Because when it comes to Russian aggression against Ukraine and Iranian aggression against the world, enough is enough. Enough is enough is enough. Chumbawamba. Whatever. Look, again, I'm going to say it, okay? I'm not trying to convince anybody to vote one way or the other. Most of you have probably already sent in your ballots. But this is good information going forward. Democrats explained Trump was going to be Hitler during his first term, but he forgot. And then here's Trump supporting economy, no new wars, supporting Israel, fair elections, no police state, free speech, legal immigration. And Hillary over there, deprogram MAGA voters. I love big gov, which is true. They do love big government. And she's calling him Hitler. Barack, I don't understand how our country has become so divided. Kamala, Trump is Hitler. Yeah, well, I'm here to tell you, and here we go again, Trump is Hitler. But of course, her message of joy didn't really work because that's it's fantasy, all right? Joy is up to the individual, okay? So they're going to go with panic. Trump is Hitler. So the Washington Examiner ran a great article to update a famous quote attributed to Ben Franklin. In this world, nothing is certain except for death and taxes, and Democrats labeling the Republican presidential candidate a fascist for the last 60 years. 60 years. That's pretty amazing. I mean, so that predates Trump? Yeah, I guess so. They have been doing this for 6 decades now. 6 decades worth of Democratic warnings of impending fascism failing to come true. It has never prevented the left wing from engaging in this reductio ad Hitleranium, whatever that means. That's their playbook. That's their playbook. They do the same thing. I mean, they kept talking about global warming, and that didn't come true. So they talked about global freezing, and that didn't come true. So now they're doing climate change. Make it as vague as possible. But, again, let's go back to 1964. Over 50 years before Trump decided to run for president. Okay? Goldwater, all right, Barry Goldwater, a Republican from Arizona, was a pilot during World War II. He was likened to the Nazis and the fascists for promoting conservatism during his campaign. Then Democrat governor of California, here we go again, see, Gavin Newsom's not doing anything new. Pat Brown remarked about Goldwater's acceptance speech, claiming it had the stench of fascism. All we needed to hear was Heil Hitler. And again, like it said, Goldwater was a pilot in the military during World War II. Of course, Pat Brown had no military service. Other scathing comments about the Republican from Arizona came from Martin Luther King. I'm sad to even have to report this. Martin Luther King is a hero of mine, but this is just dumb. We see dangerous signs of Hitlerism in the Goldwater campaign. Jackie Robinson, another man I admire. I wouldn't say that I now believe I know how it felt to be a Jew. I would say that I now know how it... I'm pretty agitated by some of this. Jackie Robinson said, I would say that I now believe I know how it felt to be a Jew in Hitler's Germany. Even in the worst periods of racial divide in this country, black people were not treated like the Jews were treated in Hitler's Germany. This is an absolute affront, okay? Disclaimer, I'm not Jewish, okay? Never have been, never will be. I have respect for them as a people, okay? I don't have an issue with them in any way. And since I have studied a lot about history, I could tell you it's shameful to compare Trump to Hitler or the experience of somebody to what it was like to be a Jew in Hitler's Germany. Families were carted off in rail carts like cattle, okay? And they were taken to concentration camps where they had their valuables removed. Their families were separated, and most of them were either worked to death or just simply put to death, okay? Former President Nixon won the election. But of course, in 1970, a political poster featured an image of Adolf Hitler wearing a Nazi armband holding a mask of Hitler. So as the author says here, surely over a decade of accusations and allegations of fascism never coming to fruition would stop Democrats from calling Republicans Nazis or comparing them to Hitler, right? Wrong. Former President Ronald Reagan was next in the line. Some Democrat out of Missouri said that Reagan wants to replace the Bill of Rights with fascist precepts lifted verbatim from Mein Kampf. Really? And then, fast forward to today. I'll tell you something. Hitler never worked at a McDonald's. I don't give a shit what people say. All right? I give credit where credit's due. You want... Okay, I'll give some credit where credit's due. California is running ads right now that explicitly say, if you are not a citizen of the United States, you will face deportation if you vote in the upcoming election. Okay? There. California did something good. Well, Trump did something good. I don't care how much this was staged. I don't care. The whole political theater is one big fucking stage anyhow. Everything they do is staged. Everything they do is scripted. This motherfucker went to a McDonald's, all right? He went to a McDonald's, which is not only an attack on Kamala, who probably didn't even work at a McDonald's. Believe it, don't believe the media when they say they can't find records, because a little department called Social Security keeps such records. But Trump promises to bring back the good Happy Meal toys. There you go. Trump forced to cancel campaign rallies for the next 2 weeks as time off requests denied by McDonald's manager. Look, man, that guy took a bullet, got up, raised his fist, man. This guy went to McDonald's. All right? He is trying to win your vote. Trump is trying to win your vote. Kamala expects it. Kamala expects all the women to support her, all the people of color to support her. She offers nothing. She does nothing for them. She does not try to win their votes. All right? She tries to scare people about Trump. She offers fucking nothing. And if the last 4 years is any indication, we can't afford it, okay? I hope that's all I have to... I don't want to talk about the election. All right? Let's just get it the fuck over. World Bank bureaucrats lost track of at least $24 billion in funds fighting climate change. Could be twice or 10 times more. Wow. Okay. And now keep in mind, I want you to keep in mind that this bombshell report came from a left-leaning charity group called Oxfam. Okay? They are left-leaning. All right? Poor record-keeping practices by the DC-based international lender that resulted in anywhere between 24 and 41 billion in misplaced funds. Wow. Hey, look, the media can contextualize and say, well, that's only 5% of the budget, or whatever percentage it is, right? The gross national product and all that shit. No, that's still 24 to 41 billion dollars that could have been put to better use, but it's been lost. The U.S. alone has lost at least 4 billion because they have the biggest shareholder with 16%. And as Niall Gardier, the director of the Margaret Thatcher Center for Freedom at the Heritage Foundation, told the Post, this is an outrageous waste of U.S. taxpayer money on a useless woke political cause. It is an insult to the American people. We look around and we see the issues that face us. And these people have their own agenda and they're spending all of their money on their agenda. Not us, because they no longer care about us and they no longer have to pretend to care about us. That's what happened in the 1700s. British citizens in the colonies realized that jolly old England and their king and their queens didn't give a shit about them. So they took up whatever arms they had and overthrew that government. I don't want to have to go to battle, okay? I'm willing to, all right? I'm in my mid-50s, but I'll tell you right now, man, I'll be on that front line if I have to be. But I don't want my daughter. I don't want my soon-to-be son-in-law. I don't want other people's kids having to die because our government has gone so far off course. I need a breath. So, I started talking about the poor fiscal policies of Tim Walz. You can look around at a lot of blue areas and see poor fiscal policies. Look at this one. Migrant crisis cost $150 billion in 2023. Imagine what we could have accomplished with that. With the crisis zones, blue cities, having to cut police, fire, and services to cover costs. This is all because of Biden's policy. This migrant crisis, that $150 billion that just went down a fucking rat hole to help poor people be poor in America, it's on them. This is also squarely on Democrats. They need to change their name. They're not Democrats anymore. Phillips 66 closes LA refinery due to state's hostility towards oil and gas, and analysts say. So they announced this on Wednesday. They were shutting down the LA refinery in the last quarter of next year. People going to be out of work now. Where, Gavin Newsom's trying to require refineries to maintain a certain amount of products so that when supplies are low, California doesn't get hit with price spikes. But he's forcing refineries to close. They say that it isn't it has nothing to do with it. But that's probably because they don't want to piss him off anymore. But, Robert Rapier, a chemical engineer and editor-in-chief of Shale magazine, said that it is. That's what this is, despite what the company may claim. It's responding to the hostile regulatory environment. Dude, you pay attention to these next couple minutes, because I was flabbergasted by what I learned here. But Robert here, he went on to say, they essentially declared war against their oil industry, and they treat the oil industry out there as a terrible thing in the state. Yeah, they do. This is Steve Malloy from the Energy and Environmental Legal Institute. Said Phillips' decision follows that of Chevron, and it represents a shift in how oil companies are dealing with regulations aimed at harming them. Data from AAA show that California has the highest gas prices, even higher than Hawaii, that regulations add as much as $1 to the gallon. But now that number, $1 in 2020, 2023, now we are up $1.91. This article is weird to read for me. Sorry about that. The bottom line here is that about $1.91 of every gallon of gas you buy is because of regulations. Clean gas, the refining process for that, regulations on, the environment, they get taxed on that kind of stuff, and just $1 per gallon of gas. So in 1982, we had 43 operating refineries. Now it's down to 14. Now, the problem here is that we use what I just said, clean gas, okay? It's got a technical name, but I don't fucking care about technical names, all right? You should know that by now. Come on. We have to refine our gas to meet certain specifications. If we have to import that gas and then refine it, we are adding a lot of cost onto it. We have plenty of raw gas. We have plenty of petroleum in California. We could then refine it, and we don't have to have all of these travel costs. It gets worse, folks. It's going to get worse. Stick with me here. Rapier went on to say, you've painted us an enemy. You've got people hating us, and now you're passing very punitive legislation against us. And we're out of here. We're not going to do business here anymore. Those sort of things have consequences. Gavin Newsom and his elite people have the means to survive what's coming. You and I do it backwards. You and I, we don't have those resources. This is going to get ugly. This is going to get ugly because we are a gasoline island. See, the blends in gasoline that aren't used elsewhere makes our state a gasoline island. We can't just simply buy oil from another state because we then have to refine it and blah, 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 blah. That means if there's a supply interruption, refiners from neighboring states can't send their gasoline to California to alleviate any supply crunches. And that's the problem that California has created. Last year, the state's refineries imported more than 60% of their oil from foreign countries for the first time ever. And much of that has come from Iraq. And they're now looking into the fact that some of that oil that we bought from Iraq actually came from Iran. So we are funding terror groups with our purchases, even though we have so much of our own. Okay, if we were out of petrol here in California, I could understand it, but we're not. We'll see in a minute. Okay, right there. Rapier said in the early 1900s, California became the largest producer of oil in the U.S. As more and more burdensome regulations fell over the industries, it's fallen to 7th place. This is at a time where oil production has reached record highs as a result of the shale revolution, which passed California. The state also has more proven oil reserves than any other state. And we're importing 60% so that people could feel green. Oh, it gets worse. It gets worse. Malloy added, California is hostile to oil, and now the oil industry is And it's sort of a new phenomenon. The oil industry is standing up for themselves. We're going to need oil for a while. The combined total somewhere in the neighborhood of 200 years worth of petroleum in the United States. This is not an emergency. We do not need to be moving at a breakneck pace. We do not need to be alienating the oil companies. So now we get into where we're going to get some of this oil. India, South Korea, the Middle East. And right there, that's my biggest problem with it. Those ships are dirty. They burn dirty fuel. If they go down, they're going to pollute the hell out of the ocean. And we're causing that. California for decades produced enough gasoline to supply almost all of its own needs, but the era of self-sufficiency is coming quickly to an end. Yeah, because that's how they're going to force you into an electric vehicle. You won't be able to afford your gas vehicle. Our government that we supposedly elect and is supposedly for the people, by the people, is telling us what we're going to do, whether we like it or not. They're talking about the Phillips closing down here. We have no pipelines into the States and no plans to add new refineries. We will need to make up for the deficit by imports via ocean tankers, in which analysts say will be a costly endeavor and one with inherent risk of supply disruptions. This is going to make California even more dependent on a longer supply chain. Not only will we see an average upward pressure on prices, but probably volatility to prices as well. This is from Skip York, great name, an industry consultant at Turner Mason and Company. Okay, he's the chief energy strategist. So this is a guy who knows his shit. California imports about 1.1 billion gallons of gasoline yearly, or 8% of its supply. Following other refinery closures and the Phillips, we are now going to be importing as much as 17%. Almost 20%, folks. We're getting there. Pretty soon, we're not going to be making any gas here in California. Oh, and won't that be fun? The potential sources, South Korea, Japan, India, Britain, the Netherlands. Come on, folks. Look, this is fucking the United States of America. We have so much damn petroleum. What are we doing importing it from the Netherlands? Ajax for life. Or even Britain. And come on. Japan, which is roughly the size of California, is going to be exporting oil to California? Does any of this make sense? It's not necessary. Common sense would dictate that we use our oil here. We get the oil that we have under our soil. We use that. If we can't get enough, then we import it like we used to. But now we're up to 17%. So a gasoline tanker's voyage from Singapore, another gasoline supplier, Singapore, come on, would take 30 to 40 days. A single typhoon, a war, a worldwide outbreak of some virus could add weeks to that already lengthy schedule, if not disrupting it entirely. We could run out of oil. Okay, that's how serious this is getting. And nobody could pipe it in? We have no pipelines to import refined gasoline. So even if we had people in Nevada refining gasoline, they'd have to drive it here. Does that make any sense? That's the kind of thing that drives costs up. You know, we have a reliable supply of affordable and safe fuel. But California is trying harder than ever to shut it all down. And before you think that maybe we could get it from Texas, here's another little wrinkle. Gasoline refineries in the U.S. Gulf Coast are an unlikely source. The Federal Jones Act requires that only U.S. flagged ships may transit from one U.S. port to another. The ship has to be manufactured and manned by U.S. crews. So, unless we use American-made and American-staffed ships to go from Texas to California, we can't bring it into California that way. We got to do it on trucks. Trucks are the least efficient way of transporting fuel because they're burning fuel along the way and because they're not very green. Again, you know, if you say you're going to be green, then you should be doing things in a green way. And just like nuclear and plastic, we need to drill for oil. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but that's the truth of it. Shipping gasoline adds to environmental problems. Ocean vessels are heavy polluters, much of them running on what's called heavy fuel oil. thick tar-like residue left over after refining other petroleum products. But while the state is committed to major reductions in greenhouse gas, it doesn't count emissions released by ocean tankers sailing more than 100 miles from the California coastline. Right. The federal government does that too. Oh, we'll let them pollute over in their corner of the world, but because it doesn't count for us. Oh, I don't know. Is California on a different fucking planet other than Earth? I don't see how. This is the lack of common sense that I see. If we are really trying to clean up our planet, and keep in mind, for the most part, we're the only ones trying to clean up our act, all right? Oh, people talk about, oh, look at Norway. Norway has all these electric vehicles. Aren't they special? They subsidize their electric vehicles because they export oil, all right? We are moving way too fast on this, all right? This discussion, 25 to 50 years from now, makes a little more sense. As we're going to see, we still have massive problems with electric vehicles. Meanwhile, with all this going on, Gavin Newsom's gone on the warpath. And he is now going to authorize state agencies to require minimum levels of storage at California refineries. So all of our refineries are eventually going to leave. And then we're going to spend extra money, extra time, extra risk to import it from elsewhere. Instead of sending, something that like makes sense, like a pipeline, no. We're going to make that supply chain even longer. Migrant gang threw boiling water at pregnant Colorado woman. Yeah, because guess what? Don't believe the hype. 2 apartment complexes in Aurora are still under control of TDA. And they wanted people out, and one of them was a Guatemalan migrant. Aren't we supposed to be worrying about all these non-U.S. citizens? Isn't that supposed to be our priority? But as long as it's illegal migrant against illegal migrant, we don't care. Is that the message we're sending? Because this lady ended up giving birth because of this. And the real reason why TDA wants all this is because they want to control where their prostitutes are. They exploit migrant women, children, whoever the hell they can get their hands on. And then they sell them to perverts. And when those perverts come in, TDA can set up cameras for blackmailing, extortion, or even easier, just sell them drugs. And nobody could see anything because it's all inside this apartment building. So the police aren't going to witness anything. The neighbors sure in the hell aren't going to say anything. And then they set up their mini little Argentina. Or Venezuela, excuse me. I'm sorry, Argentina. God, I wouldn't want to compare you to Venezuela. Holy shit. But that's from the last administration. That's what Biden-Harris gave us. A brand new gang with a brand new game. Isn't that fucking great? Half the country wants to defund the police. And then that same half also wants to import criminals. What kind of shit is that? And people are going to vote for that? People are going to vote for that. Let's bring in a criminal gang and then defund the police. Yay! Because at least you guys aren't going to make abortion illegal. Yeah. Guess that's all you got. Or you can allow some of this other craziness that they allow. This is a crazy-ass article, okay? For trans people relying on federal programs, this election could change everything. So they're talking about this lady, Wilson, here. Okay? So she sought care at a Pittsburgh clinic known for treating LGBT plus people soon after she was released from prison. Growing up, she had faced gender dysphoria and conflict with those who didn't understand her identity. She was housed with men during her two prison sentences spanning 16 years, a policy that exposes incarcerated trans women to an increased risk. Okay, we already know that. And there they couldn't do the gender-affirming surgeries. All right, okay. I mean, that sucks, but you're in jail, honey. But remember the beginning of this article? For trans people relying on federal programs, this election could change everything. Well, after she got out, she got her surgeries. They were paid for. Like it says here, Shanti Wilson, A formerly incarcerated transgender woman got the health care she needed while Donald Trump was president. She fears others might not be able to if he's elected to a second term. Are we just making shit up? Okay. If Kamala Harris is elected, she's going to go to the middle of the country and pull the drain plug and we're going to sink into the ocean. Guaranteed. Can we just make shit up now? Can we just make it up? Oh, okay. If Tim Walz becomes vice president, then he's going to sell the United States to China and we're all going to have to learn how to speak Cantonese. There you go. All right. I really don't have a lot of faith in the UN, but they have released a report on how many female athletes have lost medals to trans opponents. I'm not against trans people at all. To each his own, I say. It's the navigating some of the complexities where I might disagree with some of them. But the study from the UN, Violence Against Women and Girls in Sports, stated that more than 600 female athletes have been bested at various events by competitors who were born male. And that's, that's the UN. So if you want to trust them, whatever. According to the information received in March of 24, 600 female athletes in more than 400 competitions have lost more than 890 medals in 29 different sports. Why aren't they playing on the men's team? Isn't that, the person who filed the report with the UN said that irrespective of how they identify and what kind of suppressions they've been on, it does not eliminate the set of comparative performance advantages that they've already acquired. So if you grew up a man, you have advantages. You have bigger lungs. You have better muscle structure. Down at the bottom here, trans golfer decided to stop competing with biological females. I'm not a woman. Well, you were sort of forced into that, but I'm glad some people are waking up to it. We have to balance the rights of one group against the rights of other groups. That's all we're asking for. And all I'm asking for is honesty in this. We have been told as parents, I'm a parent, that if we do not get our child gender-affirming care, they will commit suicide. That's a really scary thing to face. Full disclosure, I had to face that with my own child. Not the transgender part, but the suicide part. If my kid was feeling that way, I'd want to do everything I could. And there's this doctor out there who says the best thing you could do is put them on puberty blockers. But her own decade-long study found that puberty blockers do nothing to help them. Joanna Olson Kennedy admitted in a recent bombshell New York Times interview. Remember, this is the New York Times. This is a left-leaning thing. The results did not prove what she'd hoped they would prove, namely that puberty blockers and similar treatments improve kids' mental health. Then she went on to say, I didn't want our work to be weaponized. Great, because she's a hardcore advocate of hormones first, questions later. What is the root cause? I'm not saying that people who are trans have an issue, but they themselves do say that they have gender dysphoria. If these kids are depressed, why? I know, okay? When I was younger, I had a lot of issues, okay? Not with sexuality or anything like that. I just had behavioral issues. I was a terror. And they sent me to a psychologist. The psychologist knew that I was adopted and promptly blamed everything on me being adopted. From what I've learned in my life, I'm one of the most well-adjusted adopted people out there. I don't care about my birth parents. I don't know my full racial identity. So you would think I would want to do 23andMe and all that shit, but I don't. I was raised by who I was raised with. I was raised by my mom and dad. My problem is that if you send a depressed or autistic child to some of these doctors and they start messing with their body chemistry, that's horrible. I'm a product of a long-term addiction. Alcohol and meth. And not fun, man. Living on the streets, committing crimes, losing friends and family. That's what I went through. So I know there's people out there who struggle. And we got to do better by them. And one of the ways we could do better by them is by coming from a place of truth. And not just, making up a lie that we want to believe and running with it. Really quick, I skipped through this, but electric fire truck burns down brand new German fire station. This one was funny because it was built a year ago. And it accommodated 10 fire engines and many firefighters. And it burned to the ground because one of the electric batteries went up, right? And the worst part about it is that they didn't even have an operating sprinkler system. They didn't have a sprinkler system or a fire alarm in the firefighters. So again, I'm going to give credit where credit's due. I'm a guy who works with fire alarms, and I give it up to California. They have some flaws to their fire prevention. There's a few flaws that I see in their way of going about it. But for the most part, you have to put sprinklers in nowadays. You have to have a fire alarm system. It's a requirement. Nobody's going to insure you or even give you a business license without one. Yeah, we're going to leave the EVs alone. I just like some of the trans issues that come up. It's the same thing with some of the green issues that come up. I'm not necessarily against them. But if they fly in the face of common sense, I can't support them. That's all it is. I just can't support bad ideas. I just don't want to support bad ideas. What's funny talking about support is the LA Times staff resigns after being asked to publish facts. The truth of the matter is the LA Times, one of the lefty media out there, refuses to endorse Kamala Harris. That says a lot. Because I think that deep down, a lot of left-leaning Democrats are sick of what they're seeing. They don't want to be leftists. They don't want to be far left. They don't want to be part of these over-the-top ideologies. They just don't want any part of it. They're moderates, and they want to go back to being more moderate. Frustrated Democrats to consider letting voters pick the presidential candidate next time. Wow. That is some of the best skewering I've ever seen. And here's a shout out for your boy right here. Researchers discover miracle cure for hangovers called not drinking copious amounts of alcohol. In case you've ever wondered, that's why I'm Kid Copious. I do copious amounts of a lot of things, man. I hope I bring copious amounts of truth and love and support to everybody out there. I honestly care about everybody who watches this show and even the people who don't watch the show. I want what's best for people. I want, even if it is an illegal immigrant who's a member of a ruthless, vile gang, I want the best for you, bro. I want people to find themselves. And that's why I want to leave everybody with this message. Time goes by a lot faster than you think. Don't allow yourself to be held back. I run into that with people I know, even right now. They're not sure what they want to do. If they want to stick with the job that they like, or if they want to venture into something new. But I'm telling you right now, man, life is too short to hesitate and to procrastinate. So if we could do one thing here at Purple State, it's please, just stop fucking procrastinating. If there's something you've got to do, just fucking do it. Get it over with. Rip the bandage off, all right? I love you and I support you and I want the best for you. I swear I do. I'm Kid Copious. I'm Purple State Party. And so are you. Love one another, man. Don't procrastinate. Vote with your head, not your heart. Peace, y'all. Dance it out.